Pastor Ed here with Daily Devotions for Tuesday, May the 28th, 2024. I want to talk a little bit about the Bible this week. I want to start off by kind of putting things into perspective. First of all, most of you probably realize this, but the Bible is not a single book. That's a common misconception, particularly among people who are not part of the faith tradition. But it's actually a collection of 66 books. Contains a variety of different kinds of writings. There's history, poetry, prophecy, wisdom literature, letters, and apocalyptic literature. The 66 books were written by at least 40 different authors who came from a variety of backgrounds: shepherds, fishermen, doctors, kings, prophets, and others. Almost certainly, most of these authors never knew one another personally. They were written over a period of approximately 1,500 years. Another reminder that the people writing it didn't know each other and weren't working together. It was written in at least three different languages originally: Hebrew, Greek, and Aramaic. And finally, they were written on 3 different continents: Africa, Asia, and Europe. Again, a testament to the variety of historical and cultural circumstances. But despite having 66 books written by over 40 authors, 1,500 years time period, 3 different languages, 3 different continents, the Bible together shares a common storyline: the creation, fall, and redemption of God's people, a common theme, God's universal unconditional love for humanity, and a common message that salvation is available to all who turn and commit themselves to God with all their heart, soul, mind, and strength. And so sometimes people question the Bible and wonder, oh, do we have an original copy? Well, the short answer to that is no. So how is it that we can believe in it? Well, Dr. Larry Pettin has an interesting way of thinking about it. He says, how many of you have ever seen an original of the Declaration of Independence? How many of you have seen at least a text of it and felt confident that you were reading what Thomas Jefferson wrote and then Adams and Franklin adjusted? Why do you feel confident? If you do, and most of us would, several reasons, he says. Number one, it was regarded as an important document, so it was treated that way. Number two, many copies of it were made right away, sent around, in this case, to the 13 colonies. Number three, many witnesses saw it and could verify its contents. And number four, we could always go back, in this case, and look at the original. What about the U.S. Constitution? Gettysburg Address, same thing. They were important. Many copies were made and spread around. Many witnesses saw them. We could always go back and look at the originals in some form. We believe about these old important documents that we have the original writings of their authors even without seeing them in person, based on all of these evidences. But let's take away number four, he said, going back and looking at the original. Let's say that no one living today has seen the originals of some older writings: Longfellow, Shakespeare, Chaucer. Let's go back to Homer, he says, Plato, Aristotle. We read their works, we accept that we are reading is their work, but all of that's based only on copies. There's no original for comparison. Still, we assume that what we have is fairly accurate. Why? Because the number of copies that exists, the care given to making the copies, the age of the copies, and the witnesses who verify to them. Even so, even without the originals, we're still confident that we're reading Shakespeare and Chaucer and Longfellow, even Homer and Plato and Aristotle. Well, just for comparison, he says, let's take the external evidence for the ancient writing of which we have the most and oldest copies and compare it to the Bible. That would be Homer's Iliad. There are 643 different copies of the Iliad existing today. He says the oldest one was made 500 years after Homer wrote the original in 725, somewhere between 725 and 625 BCE. It was regarded as sacred scripture, so it was carefully copied, sent around, preserved, still read and studied today. We figure when we're reading it that we're reading Homer, translated from classical Greek. When we take these 643 copies and compare them, the differences are are very small and only about 5% of the whole text. In other words, only 5% of the whole is their variation. In most of these places, it doesn't affect the meaning significantly. As ancient writings are concerned, the Iliad is very well preserved. Well, let's compare that to the Bible, he says. The Bible was also regarded as great sacred scripture. It was carefully copied, spread around, and preserved. Um, all told, there are thousands of ancient copies, and we take them and compare them. There are differences, but it doesn't amount to huge differences. And so we are reasonably confident, more than reasonably confident, that what we have before us is Scripture, even though we don't have the original in front of us. But it was carefully preserved and handed down to us. It was carefully put together from oral traditions that were finally written down. And it's a wonderful document that, again, shares the themes of a common story of the creation, fall, and redemption of God's people, a common theme of God's universal unconditional love, and a common message that we could turn back to God with heart, soul, mind, and strength, and renew that relationship, restore that relationship. That as Christians, we believe that Jesus Christ made that possible. So we have this wonderful document. And so even when I deal with the question like I did on Sunday about who did Adam and Eve's children marry, the fact that the Bible doesn't say doesn't mean that we should worry or obsess over it. But just keep in mind that that the Bible is this wonderful document and doesn't always it cannot be taken as literal as a literal writing, but to see in it the different themes. And we'll say more about this in the days to come, but just to kind of get your mind thinking about the Bible and how it came to be and how we approach and use it today. Well, that's enough for this morning. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. Until then, take care. Bye.